The five-star restaurant La Selene glowed under golden chandeliers, their warm light catching on the frost-bright jewelry worn by Elira Vance, a famously distant 32-year-old tycoon. She walked in with her 6-year-old son, Evan, who clung to her designer gown as if it were a lifeline. "Mom, too many people," he whispered, hiding behind her arm. Elira, used to controlling boardrooms and investors, gently guided him toward the discreet VIP lounge she had reserved. But halfway there, she suddenly stopped. In a dim corner usually ignored by elite guests, she saw a man in a worn dress shirt, tired but content, cutting pasta into tiny pieces for a laughing 7-year-old girl. They didn't belong here, not in the world of polished silver and silent wealth, yet something about their table radiated a warmth her own life lacked. Evan stopped too, his eyes widened with pure fascination. "Mom, I want to sit with them." Elira frowned. "Sweetheart, don't stare." "But she looks happy," he whispered, pointing at the girl. The man, Daniel Hale, age 36, was a single father, barely keeping his life stitched together. By day, he drove delivery routes. By night, he repaired old apartment buildings. Despite his constant exhaustion, he carved out time every week to celebrate small victories with his daughter, Lila, and today was huge. She had brought home a perfect report card. La Selene was far beyond their budget, but a mix-up at the cafe next door had landed them at this corner table inside the luxury restaurant. Daniel noticed the mistake, but he didn't correct the staff. He simply wanted Lila to enjoy the glittering chandeliers for one precious evening. She was sunlight wrapped in a tiny body, endlessly curious and quick to befriend strangers. She had no idea that the city's most untouchable business icon had just noticed their humble table. A nervous floor manager rushed toward Elira, whispering, "Miss Vance, that family isn't exactly suited for your section. I can escort you to the VIP." Elira cut him off, icy and firm. "My son decides where we sit." Evan tugged her again, pleading silently. So Elira walked straight toward Daniel's corner. Daniel looked up and nearly dropped his fork. The woman from every financial magazine was standing at his table. Elira didn't waste time with formalities. Her tone was crisp and startlingly honest. "My son wants to sit with you. May we join?" Lila beamed. "Yes, sit here." Daniel, struggling to process the surreal moment, pulled out a chair for Elira, still unsure why someone like her would choose someone like him. Yet the children were already laughing together as if they'd known each other all their lives. But as their worlds collided at this tiny corner table, neither Elira nor Daniel realized that this accidental meeting would upend their lives, starting with one innocent request from Evan that would shatter Elira's icy composure. The two children slipped into easy conversation, cartoons, school adventures, magical powers only kids believed in. What felt impossible minutes ago suddenly seemed natural. But for Elira and Daniel, an awkward silence sat between them like a third adult. They shared nothing except their fierce love for the children, now chatting like lifelong friends. Evan leaned over the table, mesmerized by the way Daniel carefully cut Lila's pasta, making each piece small enough for her to eat safely. His eyes shone with admiration. "Sir, can you cut mine too?" Evan asked softly. Elira's breath caught. Her son had never asked anyone, other than his 3 rotating nannies, to help him with something so simple. Yet here he was, trusting a stranger instantly, trusting a man whose life was the opposite of theirs. Daniel froze for a moment, surprised but touched. Then he nodded and gently pulled Evan's plate toward him. Nearby, a cluster of wealthy patrons took immediate notice. Their whispers coiled through the air like smoke. Is she mingling with him? Elira Vance at a table with what is he, maintenance staff? How desperate is she for a PR stunt? Elira's spine stiffened, every muscle trained to defend her reputation like a fortress. She was about to stand, to reclaim control. But Evan grabbed her arm. "Mom, he's nice, like a real hero." Lila chimed in, chin lifted with fierce pride. My dad is a hero. He fixed the whole apartment furnace last week, and everyone was freezing. Illyra actually smiled, a genuine one, rare and unguarded. The innocence with which the children defended Daniel softened something deep inside her. The waiter approached, eyes flicking over Daniel's faded shirt and old watch with barely concealed contempt. "To confirm, sir," he said, voice sharp as a blade, "you understand that dish is premium. We cannot serve items you cannot pay for." Daniel lowered his gaze, embarrassment burning through him. Illyra's response was icy enough to frost the silverware. "Bring 2 more plates," she ordered, "and charge them to my corporate account, immediately." The waiter stumbled away. But their moment of peace didn't last. A well-known socialite at a nearby table, Mrs. Harrow, infamous for her venomous tongue, leaned back and announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I suppose the Vance family has decided to dine with the lower classes today. How tragic. Illyra, dear, your image may never recover." Daniel looked down. He'd lived through a lifetime of humiliation, but hearing it here, in front of his daughter, stung far deeper. But Lila was not one to stay silent. She stood on her chair, tiny fists clenched. "My dad is better than everyone here. He helps people. You're just mean." Evan stood beside her, equally brave. "Mr. Daniel smiles more than all the drivers at my house." It was the moment Illyra realized something profound. These 2 small children had more courage than most adults in her world. But then, everything fractured. Her assistant burst through the doors, pale and frantic. "Miss Vance, urgent! The board is holding an emergency meeting. Someone is trying to force a takeover using leaked footage." Illyra's face drained of all color. Her hands shook. The mighty Illyra Vance, the woman feared across entire markets, was unraveling. Daniel was the first to notice the signs. He moved quickly, steady, controlled, like someone trained for crisis. And Illyra Vance's entire world tilted. Because in the next 60 seconds, Daniel would reveal a part of himself Illyra never expected, one that would change everything she believed about him and herself. Illyra's breath became shallow, her fingers trembling uncontrollably as she processed her assistant's words. The world's edges blurred. For someone who lived in constant pressure, she knew stress, but this was different. This was collapse. Daniel noticed instantly. He moved without hesitation, steady and precise, as if answering a silent alarm only he could hear. In one motion, he took a glass of cold water, tore open a sugar packet, and pressed them into Illyra's hands. "Drink, now," he instructed, not harshly, but with the firm tone of someone accustomed to stabilizing people on the edge. The staff watched, stunned. Her assistant stuttered, "What's happening?" "She's experiencing acute stress-triggered hypoglycemia," Daniel replied, monitoring her breathing. "She's been shutting her body down for too long." His voice was calm, confident, nothing like a man who patched boilers for a living. Minutes later, Illyra's breathing steadied. She blinked, regaining clarity, and stared at Daniel with disbelief. "How did you know what to do?" she whispered. His answer was simple. "Because your son needs his mother upright." Those words struck deeper than any medical explanation. Illyra realized something terrifying. In the moment she was most vulnerable, the only person who knew how to save her was the man everyone else dismissed. She gathered herself and guided Daniel, Lila, and Evan into the private VIP lounge, away from camera phones, gossiping elites, and watching eyes. Inside the quiet, wood-paneled room, the children began chasing each other, laughter echoing softly. Illyra sat across from Daniel, fragile in a way she had never allowed herself to be. "They're trying to push me out," she admitted at last, voice shaking. "They want to paint me as unstable so they can steal the company." Daniel listened quietly, studying her with a focus that made her feel seen, not assessed. "You weren't reacting to fear of losing power," he said gently. "You were reacting to the possibility of losing the life you built for him." Illyra looked up, startled. How do you read me that easily? Daniel hesitated, then exhaled slowly. Because I wasn't always doing maintenance. I was a trauma physician in the military. Elira froze. I treated battlefield panic, shock responses, psychological collapse. It becomes second nature to see it. But why leave? She asked softly. His eyes dimmed with an old, painful memory. My wife died after a surgery complication. I was hundreds of miles away, advising another medical team. I was saving strangers while losing the one person who mattered most. I couldn't continue, so I chose a life where Lila would never feel second to my work. It was a confession carved out of grief, and before Elira could respond, a small gasp broke the air. Evan, who had been laughing moments earlier, suddenly froze, his tiny chest rising too fast. Tears filled his eyes as he clutched his shirt. Mom, I'm scared. You're going to disappear. The nannies say you're too busy. What if you don't come back? Elira reached for him, but Evan stepped back, trembling. Daniel dropped to his knees instantly, scooping the boy into his arms with practiced gentleness. Hey, you're safe. Breathe with me. Match my rhythm. Evan clung to him, sobbing into his shoulder as Daniel guided him through grounding techniques, touch, sight, breathing, until the panic melted and the child sagged against him. You smell like clean air, Evan whispered, exhausted. Elira felt her heart crack open. She had never seen her son trust anyone that deeply. But the peace shattered again. Elira's assistant barged in, breathless. Miss Vance, the leaked video of your collapse is everywhere. The board is meeting to remove you. Elira's world tilted all over again. It's over, she whispered, breaking. Daniel stood tall, eyes sharp with a strategist's clarity. They're using your humanity as a weapon, he said. Then we'll turn your humanity into the truth that saves you. Because what Daniel uncovered next about the betrayal inside Elira's own company would rewrite the future for all of them and expose the enemy hiding in plain sight. Daniel shifted from gentle father to precise strategist in seconds. There was no hesitation, only clarity. As Elira trembled, he analyzed the situation with the cold accuracy of someone who'd spent years assessing life-or-death scenarios. This wasn't an accident, Daniel said. The timing is too perfect. The assistant arriving right after the video went viral? That's coordination. Elira blinked, stunned. You think someone planned this? Yes, Daniel replied, and I think I know who. He outlined it methodically. The sudden board meeting, the intentional camera angle of the leaked video, the assistant's employment under the influence of one senior executive. It was a tactical ambush disguised as coincidence. The person behind this wants your position, Daniel concluded, badly. Elira's voice quivered. Sterling. The head of operations? Daniel nodded. He hired the assistant. He planted them close to you to capture something exactly like this. Before she could respond, Evan tugged Daniel's sleeve. Uncle Daniel, save Mommy's company, please. Leela nodded with fierce determination. You can do it, Dad. Daniel's face softened. He looked at Elira, truly looked at her. You're not alone anymore. The next morning, the emergency shareholder meeting crackled with tension. Executives whispered, hungry for scandal. Sterling sat confidently, a shark waiting for blood. Elira entered, head high but eyes weary. Behind her walked Daniel, steady, calm, and the two children, their small hands linked like a shield. Murmurs rose immediately. Why is he here? Who is that man? Is this some emotional stunt? Sterling smirked. Let's proceed. The video clearly shows our CEO unstable. Daniel stepped forward. Let's show the full truth. He activated the presentation screen. The room dimmed. First, he displayed the viral clip. Then, he overlaid timestamps, metadata, and internal communication logs he had pieced together overnight. This footage was recorded and leaked within 7 minutes, Daniel narrated. Impossible unless it was pre-orchestrated. Gasps echoed. Daniel continued, voice firm. The assistant who recorded the clip was hired on Sterling's recommendation. Here are messages from Sterling instructing them to capture moments of vulnerability. Sterling went pale. Daniel wasn't done. He presented medical evidence proving Ilira's collapse was a temporary hypoglycemic episode, not a psychological breakdown. He used simple language, focusing on the human truth. She didn't collapse because she is weak. She collapsed because she works harder than anyone in this room, and someone weaponized that. Shareholders looked at Ilira differently now, not as a CEO, but as a mother standing under unbearable pressure. Sterling sputtered, "This is slander. He's just a maintenance worker." Daniel held his gaze, unwavering. "I was a trauma physician, and I'm the only one who saw the truth while others hunted for weakness." The room shifted. Sterling was escorted out, career destroyed. Mrs. Harrow, the same woman who mocked Daniel at the restaurant, stood slowly. "Who is this man?" Ilira answered without hesitation. "He is Daniel Hale, and he saved my life and this company." The board voted unanimously to keep Ilira as CEO. Ilira turned to Daniel, tears shining. "I want you by my side, not just here, but in my life, as a partner, as family." Evan hugged Daniel's leg. Lila took Evan's hand. Daniel whispered, voice thick with emotion, "Maybe fate knew what it was doing that night." Ilira reached for his hand. He took it. Together, the four of them walked out, 2 children leading, 2 adults finally free to choose joy over survival. In the glow of the morning sun, their shadows stretched long and intertwined. Not a perfect family, but a real one, formed by courage, kindness, and a single unexpected dinner. Because some stories don't start with love, they start with saving a stranger and discovering the person who changes everything. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to support me and to get more stories like this.